Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Uswatun and my student number is 8320200146. And today, my friend and I would like to presentation about one of the learning method. This is silent way. Okay, let's go. The first is background of silent way method. The silent way, developed in 1916 by Kelompok, is grounded in the belief that students should learn independently of the teacher. With confidence that the student should learn independently, Kelompok argues that the student will learn better if he develops personal responsibility for his own learning. When one learns knowingly, one's power of consciousness and his capacity to learn become greater. The purpose of Silent Way method. General objective is to give beginning level students oral and oral facility in basic elements of the target language. On this method, learners could be able to: the first, correctly and easily answer questions about themselves, their student, their family, travel, and daily events. And the second, practical knowledge and use of the target language. And the third, speak with a good accent. And the fourth, perform adequately in the following areas. There are spelling, grammar, or production rather than explanation, reading comprehension, and writing. And the next, learning hypothesis. Learning is facilitated if the learner discovers or creates, rather than remembers and repeat what is to be learned. And then, learning is facilitated by accompanying or mediating physical object. And learning is facilitated by problem solving involving the material to be learned. And the next, theory of learning on this method. Silent Way fundamentally adopts a structural syllabus that teaches about grammatic items and vocabulary. The activities and learning assignment in Silent Way provide encouragement and create student oral response without direct verbal instruction from the teacher. Learners are expected to develop sobriety, autonomy, and responsibility. Okay, the next is the teacher's role on this method. The first, teaching means interpreting an item presentation only once, typically using a non-verbal clue. And the next, continues with tests to develop and shape student production by as little as possible. And then last, monitors with silent interaction of students with each other and may even leave the room as students struggle with their new linguistic device. Okay, the next will be continued by my friends.
So I'm going to continue my friend's presentations about silent way method. But before I start it, I will introduce myself first. My name is Izza Asma Amanina. My student number is A320200143 and I'm from Class D. So the next slide is talk about the materials of silent way method. The first materials of silent method is sound chart. The sound color chart consists of blocks of color with one color representing one sound in the language being learned. The second materials of silent way method is word chart. The word chart contains the functional vocabulary of the target language and uses the same color scheme as the sound color chart. Each letter is colored in a way that indicates its pronunciations. The next materials of silent way method is fiddle. The fiddle is a set of charts presenting all the possible spelling of each sound of the language, using the same color code as the sound or color rectangle chart and word chart. And the last materials of silent way method is questionnaire road. The questionnaire road are wooden and come in 10 different lengths, but identical cross sections, and each length has its own assigned color. The next slide is talk about silent way method application procedure. The project begins on the silent way course based on Stefik and Terrigan 1991-21. First, educators pointed to meaningless symbols on a wall card. The symbols represent the syllables of spoken language. Learners read the sound aloud, first together and then continue individually. Second, once the protege has been able to say the sound, the educator switches to the second card device containing words that are often used in the language, including numbers. Educators guide learners using long numbers. Third, educators use colored beams and cards that are moved to guide students toward producing or forming needed or desired word and grammatical structure. The next slide is the example of silent way method.
See him using a chart with colored rectangles. Each rectangle represents a sound in American English, and the chart shows all the sounds of English. So, simply by pointing, he can refer to any English sound, create words out of sequences of sounds, and avoid the problems which English spelling would otherwise cause. There are a couple of things you might have noticed just now. Firstly, towards the end of the clip, when Don introduced a new sound, someone tried to say it, but ended up with one of their familiar Japanese ones. Don pointed to the rectangle for the sound the student had made, thus giving immediate, silent, completely non-judgmental feedback. Secondly, all the students' heads are up following his pointer. They're all present to the task, and that's the ideal state for learning. The way Don works, with wall charts and a pointer, and without a textbook, is part of how he keeps them present.
Okay, that is the short video for the example of silent way method. If you want to watch the video fully, you can click the link below. And the next slide is talk about the merits and lack of silent way method. The merits of silent way method. First, class becomes active with duties and activities in this method. Second, the learners' responses were prompt without the teacher's oral instructions and without the repeated sample giving. Third, train learners to make correct conclusions and decisions in how to make their own analysis. And last, can help the students' memory functions itself. And the lack of silent way method. First, it was viewed as impractical in the classroom, as students needed and wanted input more than teachers. Second, Basically, the silent way learning method centers on student, but in reality the teachers are master the materials and the teaching in the classroom. Thus, the teaching learning process still centers on teachers. I think that's all about the silent way method. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.